Hi, welcome to Leaving the Lies and Speaking Your Truth. We do ask that you like, share, and subscribe to both our YouTube channel and our Facebook page. We appreciate all of the support we get. Even if you aren't interested in sharing your story with us, we do ask that you come and show your support. You can get support in other ways by watching the videos and seeing the supportive messages that we post on the group. Autumn, welcome to the show. As always, great to see you.
Hi, Mel.
And Ivy, we have a guest today with us is Ivy Iverson. Ivy was part of a group called the Independent Fundamentalist Baptist Church. And Ivy is here to share her story with us again today. So again, we are branching outside of the House of Yahweh and going into some other cult groups that we're going to talk about. So Ivy, we do know...
Hi, guys.
Yes,
Thanks
hello.
for having me.
Oh, we love having you. We're so appreciative because we know it's not easy to talk about this kind of stuff. So we know that you were born into your group. And can you tell us a little bit about the leader of your group and what some of the teachings were that made it different than more mainstream religions?
The leader of the Independent Fundamentalist Baptist that I was personally involved in was Jack Hyles. And Jack Hyles was at the First Baptist Church of Hammond, Indiana, and that was his mega church that he developed. And a lot of the teachings that he basically hung on to it's basically the same for all Independent Fundamentalist Baptist churches. They don't have. I know that they seem to have a subculture within their faith, and they do a lot of networking from church to church to church, and they do church planting and things like that. So a lot of the teachings are very Old Testament based. So, they are very literal about the Bible, and they do focus on the New Testament as well. But a lot of their teachings come from Deuteronomy and Leviticus, and where there's just a lot of
brimstone and fire.
Yeah, it is definitely that fire and brimstone thing for sure, but it's also it's very judgmental. So if you compared Independent Fundamentalist Baptist with Southern Baptist, it would be very, very different, because Independent Fundamentalist Baptist are focused on the patriarchy. The man is the head of the household. Women should always wear dresses. Southern Baptists are not that way. You meet a Southern Baptist and they're out at the bar on Saturday night and wearing jeans. That doesn't happen in the I.F.B. The I.F.B.
Right.
is very, we had to do everything that our elders said, and we had to do everything that the man of the household, the head of the household said. So it was very degrading to be a woman. My brother was raised, with me, and he had a very different experience because he's male. I looked sort of like a Mennonite girl, where I had dresses kind of like Laura Ingalls Wilder on Little House on the Prairie. I had dresses down below my knee for sure. It had to be 2 inches below my knee. But sometimes they were really long. So when I got out of the I.F.B., I turned against that teaching of always having to wear a dress. And, I started wearing pants, eventually. And my parents pulled away from the I.F.B. for a while. And I remember the day that my dad bought me a pair of jeans. It was shocking. And he left the I.F.B. for a while and then got back into it later. So my parents are still involved in
Did they have any specific teaching or reasoning that they would use specifically, that the reason that women couldn't wear pants?
Yeah, there's a Bible verse that says women should be adorned and covered, and I don't know what passage it is. Men should wear men's clothing. There's a Bible verse somewhere that says that.
Okay.
So yeah, they take everything so literally that it's just a little bit extreme.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, our cult ended up doing similar teaching. Were you there when the women weren't allowed to wear pants anymore, Autumn, or did that come after your time?
I was there when they started with the
No
the
pants for
button
women?
and the zipper.
Mm-hmm.
You could wear the elastic pants. I said, if a button and a zipper is going to give me what they're saying it's going to give me, oh well.
Yeah, they were insinuating that if you had a button and a zipper, it was because you had male genitalia. That was the teaching. So if you had a that's what they started teaching. Their literal teaching. So it was somewhat similar, literal, and ridiculous.
That's interesting. When you said that, Autumn, I was like, give you what, gonorrhea?
No, you're broken. You're a virgin.
Okay.
You got everything giving you gonorrhea. So, a penis and gonorrhea at the same time. I took my chances. I wore them anyway.
So
your cult identifies as a Baptist religion. Are they accepting of other Baptist-based churches?
No, they believe that they believe that you have to be born again. You have to be a born again Christian, and you have to turn away from all of the sinful things of the world, and you have to be separate from the world. So no, they're not accepting of Southern Baptists. They're not accepting of any other type of organized religion. They taught when I was a child. They taught that every other faith was definitely going to hell.
That was going to be my next question. You answered it. You knew right where I was going with that.
Yeah.
And I do know that there was you talked a little bit with us because we do a pre-interview chat about some of the ways in which your leader was treated with some reverence. And a prime example was that literally the followers of your particular sect or your group of the independent fundamentalist Baptists actually would hang pictures on their wall of the leader. Is that correct?
Yes, we had a picture in my dad's room, and I think in the bedroom and maybe the living room of Jack Hiles. It was hanging there as if it was the President of the United States or somebody, held in high regard.
And was that pretty common in other people that were part of your group, or was that kind of unique to your family?
No, it was very common. I mean, they actually had pictures available of the leader so that you could, I think, purchase the photo in an 8x10 and then have it framed so that you would remember to pray for him on a daily basis.
Wow.
I would like to say, for people that are watching this, I went on and Googled this man, this religion, after speaking to her. I went straight down a rabbit hole. Melody. Not to take away from any of us that were at the House of Yahweh. This, though, her story and the way that she is today, and the person that Ivy is today, my hat's off to you, lady. But I would like to point out to everybody, outside of her church, it said First Baptist Church. So if you're a Baptist and you're new to town, you're just going to go to a church because you're a Baptist. Do you see what they did there, Mel? They made it look, it's just First Baptist.
Right.
No. It's completely nothing like a Baptist church. Sorry.
No, that's an important thing, because somebody would think they were walking into more of a mainstream church and they were really essentially walking into a cult. Would you say that's a fair statement?
Yep, yes. That is definitely true, and it also, it's interesting. I'm really glad that you brought that up, Autumn, because it seems like it seems deceptive. But it also, once you get involved, they're very welcoming. Every cult is. They're very welcoming, and they want to involve you in every piece of everything. They want to get you involved in Sunday school, and then they want to get you involved in a small group, and then they want to get you involved in the choir. And, once you're in, then you've developed a social network that is so deep and so strong that, how can you possibly not listen to the trash that's coming from the pulpit?
Right.
Because then you start believing it, because, oh my God, these people are so loving and so wonderful to me, and they've helped me financially, or they've given me food, or I was in crisis, and they go for people in crisis.
Well, and let's add in too that, and you told us this in the pre-interview chat, that they also have their own schools. So then you're getting that indoctrination also with your putting your children into their schooling. That's even more indoctrinating, because they're then receiving it on a daily basis rather than just a weekly basis.
Yeah, and it is, and the Christian schools that they have the education is not that great. All of the teachers are part of the cult.
Right.
I got a decent education in elementary school, but I learned biblical history rather than American history and world history. I didn't get into. I had no idea what was going on in the world until I got into junior high school and was put in a public school for the first time. Wow. And then I was bullied because I was still wearing clothing that looked like Little House on the Prairie, and my grades started failing, and it was a horrible experience. And that's when my dad bought me a pair of jeans so that I could fit in a little bit more, and it did help me. Yeah.
Wow, that is crazy. Wow. And Autumn, I just realized that I took your question, and I'm not sure how I managed to do that. So do you want to just continue on, or do you want me to go ahead and ask the next, and we'll get back on track?
Yep.
Okay.
You just
Sorry about that.
We'll just keep rolling.
So your cult identifies as a Baptist. Oh, you already asked that one. So you're next, actually. So you go ahead.
How did the way women were treated within your organization affect you personally? And I when I got to see this was my question, I was like, I can't wait to hear your answer on this, because Ivy, I'm going to admit, I stalked you a little bit. I mean, I went all the way back on your Facebook, and you have a very strong personality. So let me ask one more time. How did the way women were treated within your organization affect you personally?
Ooh, that's a loaded question. And yes, it has affected me dramatically. I do have a very strong personality. I knew as a child that I was not like other people. I was very intuitive. I've now identified myself as an empath. I'm very sensitive to energy, and the biggest thing that affected me was this sexual molestation by my cousin. And when that happened, when I was about 5 years old, and I think I shared this with you guys, but when that happened, it changed everything for me, because what was told to me by my 16-year-old cousin was that because he was a man and he was older than me, I needed to obey him, and I needed to do what he told me to do. And I knew it was wrong, and I knew that he was using his power based on the Bible and based on the Word of God, as they called it, to use and abuse me. And I knew at 5 years old. And there was a change that happened within me, and even before that experience, I felt like I wasn't the same as other children. I felt like women were more beautiful than men, and I now identify as pansexual, bisexual. I believe that we are beautiful humans, period. I don't think that there's a difference between women and men other than our souls and our spirits. And if I'm going to fall in love with somebody, it doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman to me. It really doesn't. So me being a strong personality and me being a rebel, if you will, it has just gotten worse over the years. I have
Can I interrupt you for just a minute, Ivy? I'm
Yes.
sorry. I'm known for this. I'm not correcting you. I just kind of want to restate something for you, if that's okay.
Yeah.
You're not a rebel. You are a person who stands up for what is right for you and for others, which actually makes you what I have called a right fighter. You fight for the right. That, I hope that didn't upset you.
No. That makes sense. I can embrace the label of rebel though, because I feel like rebels are the people who usually fight for what is right. So yeah, no, and I hear what you're saying, definitely.
Right.
But yeah, me being a strong personality, it was very difficult growing up that way and trying to be constantly demeaned. I was never listened to.
I'm going to back up just a little bit because I have a question about your abuse. Do you think that, okay, first of all, was your cousin part of the organization as well? Was he taught the same religion as you? Okay. So my next question is then, do you think that he knew what you were being taught as a child and therefore kind of used that in a way to target you? Does that make sense? Because he knew how you'd been conditioned. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. I just think that is somewhat important because obviously that doesn't just affect the way that girls behave and act within these types of organization, but it also affects and changes the way that boys think that they can act and behave as well, which it creates an environment that breeds things like that. That's why I was asking. That's why I thought that it was important to ask that question.
Yeah, it does. It does breed. And, the thing that I have, the issue that I have with the I.F.B. and the reason that I want to be involved in helping people escape any type of cult is, the I.F.B. is, to this day, an organization that is just loaded with pedophiles. And in my opinion, every organization that, this might seem harsh, every organization or faith or religion that denies natural sexual energy from happening is going to create a monster within. And when a boy is taught to treat a woman in a different way, or a boy is taught that he should not masturbate, for instance, you have this energy that is being completely ignored, and it's our God-given right, if you will, to have that beautiful energy that is creative energy. It's our immune system is right next to our sexual energy, where we create life. We create life right there in that part of our body. And any church or faith or anybody who denies the fact that you can't have sexual energy or you can't make love to another person is just it's a deep fire that burns, and then it becomes a big problem later, because when you deny a piece of yourself that is rightfully yours to enjoy life, and that's a piece of your enjoyment out of life. It's like enjoying a really good meal, an orgasm is a really good meal. It's like, it's a good thing. It's like, why deny that? So, and I don't like the Catholic Church for that reason.
Right.
They have priests that are denying their sexual energy, and then they're beating themselves and things. I just don't agree with that whole concept. So when you have a faith that is teaching boys to not allow themselves that pleasure,
right,
or taking that over to African countries or some of the Muslim faiths where they have female genital mutilation,
right,
that type of thing, where you're denying pleasure, period.
Right.
That just becomes a problem. And when you squelch that and you deny that, what happens is it is going to find a way out. And
right.
It's going to find a way out through you know, demeaning women, raping women, you know, because that drive is so intense.
Yes.
There's nothing wrong with that drive, but that drive needs to be, you know,
Right.
distributed, you know, in a proper way.
Or children. Children are the other targets. Women and children tend to
Exactly.
be the targets of that in the end,
Exactly.
ultimately, because we've seen it happen within our own cult since leaving. That especially now, women are treated horribly, but after the women, now the children are being targeted, and the children are suffering from those same repercussions of that. Exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think this, you may have already covered this question, but and I don't know, I don't remember if your cult was actually aware of your abuse, but was your organization tolerant, or did they cover up incidents of abuse that would happen within the organization itself?
Whether sexual or mental
Or physical, yes.
emotional or physical.
They covered it up all the time, and they still do. They still do. You know, Jack Hiles was the preacher of the church that I was in. His son, David Hiles, is right now all over the news because of multiple issues from, you know, a couple of ladies, I believe, coming forward and talking about the abuse that they experienced while I was there in the church when he was a teenager and, you know, and beyond. He has his own church, or he had his own church somewhere in Texas. And he's a disaster. He's a complete disaster. And, you know, I hope he rots in jail. I really do. You know, all the time. My experience with my sexual molestation was completely covered up. It was dealt with within the family. And it was talked about only maybe once or twice. And then everything was swept under the rug. And I was not protected from my cousin. And their relationship with that family was more important than me and my safety. And, you know, the thing that affected me deeply, so deeply, was not the act itself of the sexual molestation that happened. It wasn't the act itself. What affected me deeply was my parents' reaction to finding out about it. Because they wanted to hang on to their relationship with that family. It was, you know, it was my cousin. It was my mom's sister and her family, and they were all members of the same faith. And it was there was nothing done about it. There was nothing done about it. It was assumed that, you know, I was just making up a story.
So Ivy, when you, after this time, and I don't know the answer to this is a random question that just came up for me. I assume then after that time, after the incident happened, then you were exposed potentially to this abuser, again, on multiple occasions potentially. Did you feel that there was more of an effort made to keep him away from you, or keep you safe at all, or no?
Never.
No.
Never.
Oh.
Never. We were just unsupervised children when we were playing out in the woods and playing in the gardens, whatever. Yeah, there was never any type of safety concern whatsoever. Again.
Wow.
So at the age of 5, you were taught that essentially you were taught, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you were to feel shame, you were to feel guilt because it was your fault. You were taught that your parents were not going to protect you. You were taught that boys, men, the male was more important than you. You were taught that you are to essentially bow down, cower down, listen to,
obey.
Obey at the age of 5. Is this what I am understanding from you, Ivy? This is at the age of 5.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So at the age of 5, I realized that I basically had to watch out for myself. And I very slowly through the years started observing and realizing that I was not like other people. And I was not like my family at all. And because I knew that I could not trust my parents to protect me, Right. I didn't have a close relationship with my mom from birth on. I never, she wasn't taught to be a mother. She wasn't taught to, how to get through a pregnancy. So I was her first child, and it was a difficult pregnancy for her, and I wasn't breastfeeding properly and things like that. We never had a connection, never. And to this day, love her. She's my mom, but there's no. Everybody says things like, "Oh, a mother's love is the best." I'm like, I don't get that. I just don't. I don't have a mother's love.
That wasn't your experience.
It really wasn't my experience at all. I was a daddy's girl. And I clung to my dad and really wanted to, I wanted to be like him. I wanted to be like him, and I became a tomboy a little bit, and then I came out as as a lesbian years later, about 25 years ago now, and I'm dating a guy now, so my parents are extremely confused. But that's okay. They don't need to detail.
At the age of 5, they were confusing you. This is just a little payback, honey. Okay?
Yeah, pay it forward.
Yes.
I love it, Autumn.
Hey, Ivy, what were some of the techniques the group used to keep members under control?
Under control. It was basically constant indoctrination. It was. They don't practice shunning or disfellowship. Disfellowship. That term comes from the Jehovah's Witnesses. That's what they do. They disfellowship you. They excommunicate you from their fold. The I.F.B. they don't shun people. They make them feel guilty for not following God's word. They make them they constantly preach, and they reach out, but I'm going to be honest with you, they reach out in it quite often either a loving way, or they reach out in a very guilt-ridden way. And the whole fear thing, it's all about fear. You are going to inherit the kingdom of Satan, or you are going to burn in the lake of fire. There's so much
that sounds familiar.
Yeah. So it's just so much fear, and it's all basically fear-based. So, keeping people under control, there was no, hidden dungeon anywhere where we were,
right. Well, fear is a big motivator.
It is, and it was basically it was preaching fear constantly. Yeah.
And you just said a few seconds ago, they either came to you very lovingly, or they came to you, hitting you hard with fear.
Harsh.
But what people don't realize is when they come to you lovingly, it's almost like, Melody and I have said this several times, that being in a cult is like being in a very abusive relationship, which, both of us have dealt with.
Oh, yep.
But my point being is that after he knocked me down or did whatever he did, the next day it was, roses and candles and chocolates and the honeymoon phase. And I'm not saying that it's worse then, but I am going to say this, and I will get a little feedback from this. I am going to say that it is just as bad as getting knocked around or yelled at or put down, because then you're sitting there in your own mind going, wait, what just happened?
Right.
Wait, I know this wasn't right, but how are they being so loving to me right now? Maybe I over dramatize this. Maybe I'm not thinking right. Maybe it is me. So, and in essence, they're still playing with you emotionally and mentally as they're love bombing you because it's what's best for you and I love you. So
that's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. It's that whole, I can't remember the term. It's not catfishing, but it's the other thing where you
gaslighting.
Gaslighting.
Yes.
Yeah, it's that. It's making you think that you're crazy, and why would you even think about turning against God? Why would you even think about, I mean, we have all of this proof here in the Bible that, you're going to burn in the lake of fire.
Right.
Well, I don't even believe in the Bible anymore. So, I don't know what to do with that. So, yeah.
Right. Right.
Ivy, when and why did you start thinking you were in a cult?
I think the first time it came to my mind was when I approached my aunt about the fact that she was wearing pants. And I was very young. I think I was maybe 6 or 7.
Wow.
But I approached her, and I was stuck. I mean, what do you do? You're born into this mess.
Right.
And I approached her, and I said, Aunt Charlotte, Jesus isn't happy with you, and you're going to go to hell because you're wearing pants. And she reached down to me, and very lovingly, she whispered, and she said, "Sweet girl, Jesus doesn't care what I wear, and he doesn't care what you wear either."
I love it.
And I was like, oh, and then there was something in me at that moment that said, oh, maybe there's another way to think about this. And so later on in my teenage years, I started reading the Bible for myself. And then I was a Bible thumper in high school. I was a good kid. I started Bible studies in high school. I had a boyfriend that wanted to be a preacher, all these little things. And I read for myself the New Testament, and I started reading the stuff that Jesus actually did. I really liked Jesus. Jesus was a really cool guy. He was kind of a socialist and a rebel and a crazy man, and he was always making messes, he was making trouble. And I started realizing that some of the teachings that that I grew up with, they didn't really line up. Didn't really line up, because when I was reading and when I was interpreting, man, Jesus was hanging out with sluts and street people and hanging out with homeless folks, and he was kind and compassionate to everyone, and he was healing people. I mean, how can that be bad?
Right.
And was he changing their lives and making them follow a certain way? No, he was just being awesome.
So you probably didn't know the word cult when you were 7, but what your aunt did was she planted a seed in you so that when you got older and you could process that, and you never forgot what she said to you, because she planted that seed in you at a very young age. And thank goodness she did, because I think when you started being able to read on your own and study on your own, you were able to refer back to that idea that there's more than one way to see things.
Right. Yeah.
Good job, Aunt Charlotte.
Yeah, we don't know her, but I like your Aunt Charlotte.
Well, sadly, we just lost her to COVID.
Oh, I'm sorry, honey.
Yeah, she was my rock. She really was. She was an amazing woman. So.
Well, I'm so sorry for your loss.
Wear your mask.
Yes.
So we have about 3 minutes left. So Autumn, I'm going to have you go ahead and ask that next question, and then we'll send a new link to because we're going to have a part 2 with Ivy here. So go ahead and ask your question, Autumn, then we'll come back.
Ivy, when and how did you end up leaving the I.F.B?
Okay. She's going to answer that when we come back for part 2.